one. What audience are you expecting? Is it practitioners or is it academics?
Yeah, there'll be mainly listening because this is a webinar.
What audience are you expecting?
Yeah. So anyway, okay, I'll count you in, Dr. Stephen. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this workshop on the Khalifa International Award for Early Learning. The Khalifa Award in Early Learning is a new prize. It was first awarded last year and is under the aegis of the Khalifa Award for Education, which was founded in the United Arab Emirates in 2007. The patrons of the award are the President of the UAE and the Deputy Prime Minister of the UAE, who's also the Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Khalifa Award for Education. I'm Steve Barnett. I am Chair of the Award Committee for the Khalifa Award for Early Learning and a Professor and Director of the National Institute for Early Education Research at Rutgers University in the US. I'm joined today to speak with you by Emma Hadley of the Inter-American Development Bank, one of last year's prize winners for Best Program. And she's going to talk about the evidence base for the program for which she won last year's prize, one of the 2 prizes for Best Program. And I think that will give you a sense of, in very concrete terms, what the committee is looking for, what the trustees are looking for to recognize with this new prestigious award. Prior to that, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the award, its purposes, how to apply. There's a lot more information available on the website. I encourage you to visit the award website. There's videos, workshops, instructions, FAQs, and of course the online application. And after we finish our presentations, then we'll take questions. So I will share my screen now to begin my presentation about the award. The objectives of the Khalifa International Award for Early Learning are to promote early childhood development and learning, to enrich early learning programs with research that informs practice, to motivate innovative teachers through best practices, promote the role of institutions that specialize in preschool education and early learning, to recognize innovative, successful approaches for parents, other individual caregivers, and to share the benefits globally of the best research, especially from rigorous studies that would have implications for policy and practice. So you can see there's a very broad set of objectives aimed at this important goal of enhancing what individuals, communities, nations can do to promote early childhood development and learning. Now, the criteria for these awards are slightly different between research and programs or practices, so I'm going to describe the 2 of those separately. For the best research and studies category, we seek to identify research on early childhood education and care that offers innovative problems solutions that enrich the evidence base for policies and practices in ways that can lead to meaningful improvements. Applications for the best research and studies are judged on 4 criteria: innovativeness, importance. Oops, I'm sorry. I have methodological rigor and impact. Each of the criteria are assigned equal value in judging the applications. Each of the criteria correspond to 4 main questions, with sub-questions under each to be addressed in each application. Research should have been published already in some form in a government, non-governmental organization report, a book chapter, a journal article. But these publications should be the basis for an application, not the application itself. Each application should include an abstract of no more than 300 words with a brief description that addresses all 4 criteria. You're also encouraged, if you need to provide additional information, to provide this in an optional appendix. So let's, I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulties with so the first question. Regarding does the research support the development of new policies and practices? Does the research provide new insights into early learning, early childhood education, or alter how these are understood? The second concerns the significance of the research. Does the research address one or more critical issues for early learning policy or practice? Does the research include populations or contexts of particular importance? For example, children who are highly disadvantaged, or children or contexts that are understudied, excluded, or underserved. Does the research employ appropriate, clearly defined ethical methods? Having a rigorous methodology is an important criteria. Are these research methods clearly described in your application? Has the research been reported in publication? Do the methods provide a strong basis for trust and confidence in the findings and conclusions? Remember that a purpose of the award is to inform policy and practice internationally. And so we want to make sure that the methodology provides a strong basis for confidence in using the findings and conclusions of a study. Does the methodology offer a model to inspire or to be followed in future studies, an additional advantage? And then the fourth, what are the potential and/or demonstrated impacts? We recognize that in some research, what you may find is something that's highly promising for the future, that sets up a clear rationale for changes in practice, but hasn't necessarily demonstrated yet impacts on practice at scale or on children's outcomes. Those are still important and highly desirable applications. But of course, if you have demonstrated impacts, the review committee would also like to see those presented in your application. So what are the implications of the research for practice? They can be for caregivers, teachers, parents, or others who influence young children's learning and development. It doesn't all, we aren't just looking at formal programs. Does the research have the potential or documented influence on policy and practice? And are the findings and insightfulness going to lead to innovations and new ways of thinking, new ways of practice? So the same I seem to be going backwards here. Whoops. Excuse me again so the to provide some more specificity about the award for the category, for both categories, including research and studies, individuals, groups, institutions are available to apply. Each winner will be awarded 50,000 USD as the prize. So there are 2 awards in each of the fields. Now, moving on to best programs, teaching methods and approaches related to early learning and development. The criteria here for best programs, curricula, teaching methodologies, practices are again 4: innovativeness, importance, impact, and feasibility or sustainability. Each of the criteria, again, have equal value in judging the applications. To assist in preparing these applications, again, there are 4 main questions to be addressed in each application. Each application should include an abstract of no more than 300 words describing the program, addressing each of the 4 criteria. All of the program's practices, methods, curricula submitted for consideration should have been subject to a rigorous evaluation of implementation or outcomes. And again, applications should be no more than 10 pages, excluding the abstract references and again, an optional appendix that can be up to 3 pages with links to materials that are available online, videos, publications, other materials. First question is really about how innovative the program is. Does the program inspire, offer a model for new creative approaches to early learning activities in a variety, again, formal and informal, of early learning settings? Any of these are eligible, or it could be that a program practice method addresses multiple types of early learning settings. Could this approach cultivate disposition, skills, knowledge, and self-awareness that will shape society for the better? Right? So again, we'd like to see theory or evidence supporting the view that the innovation will lead to these kinds of important changes in early learning and development. How important is the program? The second question, does the program address one or more critical issues or problems that families, communities, broader societies encounter in supporting early learning? What are the program's goals for expanding access, for improving the quality of early learning experiences, producing better outcomes for children and young children's learning? And then how extensive are the intended consequences or the actual consequences? What do we know about what is known about these? What are the impacts of the program? Again, these impacts could be very broad. They could be on access, on quality of practice, or on learning outcomes. Of course, they could be on more than one of these. To what extent have persistent and sustained changes in practice and outcomes been demonstrated with rigorous evaluation methods? How substantive or transformative is the new program for practice, for those who conduct the program and for the young children who experience the program? And finally, how feasible and sustainable is the program? To what extent has the program or practice been scaled so far? What's the potential for it to be further scaled up or adapted to similar populations or contexts elsewhere? How well is the program documented? And is that documentation providing sufficient information to support replication? Finally, how much does the program cost, and what resources are available to implement the program? Again, the award is available to the same categories of applicants for program as with research, individuals, groups, and institutions. The prize level is the same, 50,000 American dollars per prize. So the total across both categories is $200,000. The age group we define as is traditional in early childhood and widely accepted as 0 to 8. Any programs or research on children within that age range, it doesn't have to be the entire age range, is eligible. Qualifications for the awards, again, individuals, teams, institutions from any country. There are some limitations. Candidates for the award should not have applied for similar award within or outside the UAE in the same area in the same year. Applicants must not have received another award in the same field of similar value within the last 2 years, including the year of nomination. And with respect to timeline, applications are due. These are important dates. January 12th, 2024, that's probably the most important date. And then winners will be notified after an extensive review process in April of 2024. So in applying for the award, important that you use the website and make the application. The website is given here, el.khaward.ae before the deadline of January 12th. On the website, you'll see there's an extensive discussion and instructions with respect to the general guidelines. You have to follow the general guidelines, provide all the documents required for the electronic applications so that these can be reviewed in a standard way. The application must be in English. Applications in Arabic language will not be considered. If work teams or institutions from outside the country win the prize, only the head of the team, a principal investigator, or one representative can collect it. It doesn't, of course, the prize itself can be shared, but to come receive the prize, only one representative. And the material or content must not have been prepared within the requirements for a degree in higher education, a bachelor's, master's, doctoral degree, or education or equivalent. Please, if there are follow-up questions, if things arise when you're applying, you can not only consult the application instructions on the website, but you can contact support if you encounter technical difficulties also at the website and this email that's provided here. The award committee, again, I chair the award committee. I'm founding co-director of the National Institute for Early Education and a Board of Governors professor at Rutgers University. The other members of the award committee are Dr. Iram Siraj, OBE, and Professor of Child Development and Education at University of Oxford. Dr. Jana Fleming, a Director of Early Childhood Development at the Salama bin Hamdan Al Nahyan Foundation. Dr. Normala Rao is the Serena Yang Professor in Early Childhood Development and Education and Professor and Chair of Child Development and Education at the University of Hong Kong. And Mrs. Fatima Ahmad Abdullah Al-Bastaki, who's Project Manager for the Chinese Expansion Project in the UAE and Cluster Manager at ESE. The committee does not make the final decisions. The committee gives a list of recommendations to the Board of Trustees for the Khalifa Award, who make the final decision. Thank you, and we will now move on to presentation from last year's award winner for Program and Practice.
Thank you, Stephen, and good afternoon, I guess, or evening to everyone. And good morning to anyone attending from the United States. Very pleased to be able to share the best practice project that I'm leading. I'm team leader for. It's a project called Khadengo, and it's from Panama, and it's an intercultural bilingual preschool education project. And the project and the pedagogical approach that was designed in response to really two large sets of challenges. The first is that in Latin America and the Caribbean, where I work, high quality early childhood math education is a rarity in and of itself. It's like typically when you visit preschools in Latin America and the Caribbean, the math education that children receive is largely limited to oral counting. So a kid can count like to 10 or 20 or sometimes even 100. But then if you ask that same child to count 3 rocks, then they can't do that because no one taught them one-to-one correspondence. So, and this of course is due to vast pedagogical gaps of preschool teachers throughout the region. So the teachers don't have the skills they limit preschool math instruction to oral counting. They don't have the skills to teach geometric shapes, spatial relations, number recognition, one-to-one correspondence, etc. So that was one of the challenges we wanted to address, to provide how do you with teachers that have vast content gaps in pedagogy, content but largely pedagogical gaps in how to do preschool math, how do you then make kids learn math? That was one challenge. The other challenge, which is also common to all of Latin America and the Caribbean, where there are indigenous populations, is that there are really important learning gaps between indigenous students and their peers who are not indigenous, and with the indigenous students lagging behind in mathematics and other subjects. And part of the problem and the reason why indigenous students lag behind is that the teachers that are assigned to teach in what's called intercultural bilingual schools, they are not bilingual themselves. The vast majority don't know the language, they don't know the culture. So then obviously it's hard for children to learn, because research really clearly shows that children learn best when they can have a language of instruction that they speak and understand the best. So these were the challenges that we wanted to address. Number one, teachers that have pedagogical gaps in how to teach preschool math, and teachers are assigned to teach in intercultural bilingual preschools, and they don't know the language nor the culture. So I'm going to share a presentation, and I hope you can see the screen. So the project, as I said, or the pedagogical methodology, is called Khadengo. It was implemented in Panama's largest indigenous comarca, which is the Comarca Nove. And the challenge then is that how do you provide preschool math instruction in a context of vast pedagogical, cultural, and language skills? So that was the challenge. So what we designed was an interactive radio methodology where you have an audio that guides the teacher through the lesson. And the audio is very engaging, play-based, with singing and dancing. It has mathematics, radio theater with characters that interact, and you learn mathematics by listening, but also you learn the audio pauses and tells the teacher to distribute counters or whatever, and then the activities are so that kids can explore and learn hands-on mathematics by using geometric solids, counters, clocks, scales, etc., and explore and do like inquiry around mathematics. All content is repeated in Spanish and Nobere, because there are some kids in each classroom. There are some children who are stronger in Spanish, some that are stronger in Nobere. So it's and some that are completely monolingual in one of the two. So all content was kind of repeated in both languages. The materials included then 108 audio lessons that were done with musicians, with actors, and based on cultural practices that we and songs and games that we kind of collected from the community. Each classroom gets like a kind of a commercial type radio where they can use a USB drive to kind of to play the audio when they want to. And then there was also a post audio materials, visible and tangible math materials to work with, and books, math books that went with it. And the project was in collaboration with the Organization of Ibero-American States, and the Ministry of Education in Panama, and IPA, which is an NGO that works on evaluation. And then I'm from the Inter-American Development Bank, or Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, BID is in Spanish. And then we had very generous funding from the government of Japan. So the evaluation design, there we used an evaluation design that's kind of like a medical experiment. Like you probably heard a medical experience where you give like one group like a pill and the other get like a sugar pill, and then you see which group improves the most. So that's kind of how we designed it. It's a randomized controlled trial or experimental evaluation. And the instruments that we used were, we had standardized measurements of learning, early grade math assessment, which some of you may be familiar with, and an early grade reading assessment that of course were translated to Nobere, but we've developed, those of you who are familiar with EGRA and EGMA, early grade reading and early grade math assessment, you know that they were designed for kind of first, second, third grade. We've developed a preschool version that we've used throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. So that's what we used. We also had teacher questionnaires, caregiver questionnaires, and questionnaires for school principals. So as I said, then we had EGMA preschool, EGRA preschool for language. To see the language, we didn't really expect an impact on language, but we measured it just to see if there were spillover effects, because sometimes, particularly when we do science projects, sometimes there are spillover effects on language. We also measured math anxiety, ethnomathematics skills, cultural values, and oral comprehensions and perceptions about mathematics. With respect, I forgot to mention that initially, that the project, one of the characteristics of the project is that we combined teaching of Western math with teaching of the culture, the math from the community. So children learned both Nobe math or ethnomathematics and Western math. So there was math from their own culture. So here, for example, is an example of the assessment of ethnomath. So in Nobere, kids learn 13 different ways of counting. So for example, if I count in English, I say 1 child, 2 children, 3 children. And then if I count tomatoes, I say 1 tomato, 2 tomatoes, 3 tomatoes. It's the same numbering system. But in Nobere, it's not like that. I use one numbering system to count the children. I use an entirely different numbering system when I count tomatoes, because then I use a system designed specifically for counting round objects, which is called huati, round objects. So then I And then I have yet another numbering system if I count dogs or tables, because that's counting things with 4 legs. So children learn in the ethnomath, they learn a completely different mathematics system. So here is an example of the ethnomath assessment where it says, use tus dedos para indicar la cosa redonda. So use your fingers to point to the round object. And kids are not expected to read this. The testing was done individually, child by child, with it's almost 2,000 children. So it was lots of children that we tested that participated in the study. And then, so here are the results. We measured for 2 years, 2018 and 2019. And we measured 2 years because sometimes it takes a little while for the teachers to kind of get used to a new pedagogy. So the first year, it might be less impact than the second year when teachers are kind of have more expertise in the model. So for example, what we found was that Khadengo improves the Western math skills. The first year we had an impact of 0.12 standard deviation, the second year 0.22 standard deviations. And just for those of you who are not used to working with standard deviations, then what we see in Latin America is that a child in preschool and typically learn in an entire year of preschool math, typically a child learns 0.4 standard deviations of math. That's like an entire school year of math learning. What this tells us is that the kids who received Khadengo, they improved like half a school year extra of math compared to their peers. So 0.22 is like more than half a school year of math that they improved more than their peers without receiving additional time for math instruction, just changing the pedagogy. When it came to ethnomath skills, we have similar results, 0.23 standard deviations first year, 0.24 standard deviation the second year. When it comes to other results, then we have here reading comprehension in Spanish. There was no effect on reading. Reading comprehension in Novere, no effect. The program didn't include any of that, but we measure it always for potential spillover effects. When it came to cultural identity, then we did have effects that they improved the knowledge of their own culture. And then we had also qualitative evaluation, and there we filmed a random smaller sample in both groups. We filmed like a smaller random sample of classes and coded the lessons and did a qualitative evaluation to see what was happening. What we saw as accomplishments in the qualitative study was that teachers and students, they really had fun with this engaging, interactive methodology, and they were very focused on the tasks. We also saw that the pedagogy was implemented as tended by teachers with varying skill levels, because the audio guides the teachers. So even the teachers with really low skill levels were managed to implement the model. And then also what we also saw in the qualitative evaluation through in-depth interviews with teachers and in the teacher questionnaire and the principal questionnaire, and caregiver questionnaire, we saw that caregiver engagement became, that parents felt closer to the school, so they visited the school more and participated. Something that we saw as challenging was that the teachers, they didn't, maybe for not being from the community, they implemented less the post audio content that was about the Nove culture. So they used more of the post audio content that was pure math and less in the part that was culture. So that's something that we're addressing when we're scaling it up now. So basically, in conclusion, it improves Western math skills, ethno-math skills. It improves knowledge of Nobere culture. And for teachers, I didn't show that, but it actually improves knowledge of Nobere, so they learned the language. together with the children, and it improves their knowledge of ethnomathematics. And then post-pilot developments is that it's been scaled horizontally throughout the Comarca Nove, like throughout this indigenous community. It's been scaled, and it's been scaled vertically to first, second, and third grade. And then Materaimi is a Quechua version that we have worked with the Ministry of Education in Peru to develop, and it's ready. And we're working with them now to launch it at the start of the 2024 school year, which starts in March. Yeah, that's what I had to share. And I'm, of course, available for questions.
Thank you, Emma. I think that provides a good exemplar for people to understand the kind of program and the kind of evidence for impact that the award is seeking in applicants. We have a substantial number of questions already. So far, just one question about your program that I thought we could take at the top, which is someone asked about the cost.
Yeah, so the cost of this program is very low, actually, compared to other interventions that we do. You have to, it's a little bit pricey to invest in the audio, to the recordings first. So then it's because you have to contract first. You have to work with pedagogues to develop a pedagogical sequence, etc., and then record the lessons in studio with actors, etc. So typically, I can't remember now the exact cost of Cadengo, but it's like $200,000 or something that to produce the audios. But then to scale it is extremely cheap compared to other math projects, because normally when I do math, because I work a lot in math and science, and typically when you do an intervention, then you invest so much in teacher training. And this model, since the teacher has the audio that guides them, it's very low cost. You give them really minimal training in how to use the audio, practicing to do the lessons a little bit, but it's just a few days of training, and then we typically visit them with coaches in the classroom. But it's very cheap to scale, and the more students that actually benefit from it, the lower the cost per student is. So you get down to a cost per student, which is like around like maybe $10, $15. It's really, really inexpensive to scale this type compared to other interventions, which are much pricier.
Okay, so I'm going to move down the list of questions. Because there's so many questions, I have combined some of them so that we can answer more than one answer more than one question at once. The award was given last year in the spring. Information on each of last year's award winners in detail is provided on the Khalifa Award website. The information that's provided on the winners and the reports from each of them are a good guide to the structure of an application, the key points that you need to make in an application, the type of information that the award committee is looking for. And so they're great examples that of course, the programs or the research don't have to be exactly like these, but you'll see there's a mix of individuals and organizations The application, the award is also open to a wider range of people than were included in the first 4 awards. So, for example, independent private sector teachers, program administrators are all eligible to apply. Higher education institutions are eligible to apply. But of course, there the emphasis would need to be on something that addresses the needs of early childhood. The age range, again, is birth to 8. Of course, if your program is preparing teachers of children birth to 8, then that would qualify, right? So it isn't that the participants themselves necessarily need to be birth to 8, but the impact needs to be, if not directly, indirectly, on children in that early childhood period. There are Khalifa Awards in other areas for applicants from the UAE or the region. Again, if you're interested in areas outside early childhood, please feel free to visit the website and find out much more about that. But the award for early learning really is focused on direct or indirect impacts on the learning and development of young children. There are many good ideas in our field. In order for those to give recognition and precedence and to some over others, there must be some evidence, an evaluation of impact. And that can be direct, indirect, doesn't have to be directly on children. And there are a number of questions about the requirement for publication. I think the idea here is there must be some document that describes the research in detail, that establishes its rigor, sets out the methodology, findings, implications, and for a program sets out detailed description of the program, its likely or known impacts, evaluation, cost, feasibility, sustainability. And so that publication doesn't have to be a journal article or something in the formal literature. It could be even an internal document to an organization. But there has to be, the idea is there must be some kind of documentation for the program practice research. The template is essentially laid out in the instructions. It's not a formal template in the sense of, here are the sections, fill them in, but they're clearly described. And again, the examples that are provided from last year's winner are a good example and could be used as templates for how you want to structure your application within the guidelines and instructions provided on the website. There are no official recognition certificates or anything like that for applicants to the awards. One of the things that we're trying to do is to keep, essentially those who don't win the award remain anonymous and are free to apply for this and other awards without any kind of prejudice in future years. There were a number of questions about how far along the project research program has to be in development. That's a difficult question to answer. certainly we're interested in new concepts that still need further development from a research perspective. Nothing's ever finally perfect for no other reason than children in the world keep changing and we need to adapt. So there's always room for further development and improvement, but the project practice research needs to be far enough along that you can firmly establish the potential for impact at scale. There are questions about whether if you've already submitted an application, you can modify that. I suggest that you contact the Khalifa Award for technical assistance on the email that's provided. If you wish to do that, I don't see that there would be a problem prior to the application deadline to essentially withdrawing and resubmitting an application. There are questions about whether this has to be broad for community or could be very specific teaching practices, pedagogy within a classroom. Certainly, we're trying to be very broad in the types of things. Again, this could be specific practices for parents, for other kinds of caregivers, but also for teachers in a classroom. It can be very tightly focused on pedagogy or much broader. There are no restrictions on that, on the nature of the activity. There are also questions about whether it's research or practices that benefit the industry are eligible, and I'd say certainly, but you have to make the connection to how is benefiting the industry going to benefit early learning and development of young children. I'm going to check and see if there are additional questions now. So there's a valid email in the slide. If for some reason you have difficulty contacting the Khalifa Award, but I think you shouldn't, feel free to contact me as chair of the award committee. I won't respond, but I will forward it to the appropriate people if you have difficulty. My email is sbarnett@nieer.org. There are no excluded countries. Any place in the world is eligible to apply. There is no specific theoretical framework or practical framework. We're open to all perspectives. All kinds of different activities from any kind of theoretical, practical perspective. There's a question about whether a program that's been in use for at least 3 years has significant impact on reading skills of children 5 to 8 years. Clearly, that's right. That's a project that would seem to be highly qualified and fit in exactly the kind of thing that one of the kinds of things that we're looking for. When thinking about the presentation, the application, again, there were clear page limits. They're described in those slides, which will be available. You can view this again. If there are things that went by too quickly, the page limit is 10 pages for the main body of the report. That doesn't include the abstract references and some other materials. There's the opportunity for a 3-page appendix, and that appendix can include links to online materials. which opens up the opportunity to include a large amount of supplemental material through web links. Yes, it has to be, your application must be in English. For those, some people joined late, again, this, a recording of this will be made available for viewing at later time. So anything that you missed earlier. Teaching of foreign languages would be included. Where a critical issue in many countries is dual language learners. So in our multilingual world, many children are learning more than one language. How to best do that is a critical issue for practice. I will put my email in the chat. To make that easier to find. So for there's the question about whether research or proven results are required. And I don't know if I would say research, but some kind of rigorous evaluation is required. We want to see a solid evidence base that this is that the winners are in fact likely to have important impacts on the early learning, education, development of young children. So if you can't see the chat, again, my email, sbarnett@nieer.org. And of course, if you view the email again, you view the recording of this, you will see the links to the Khalifa website and the email there for technical assistance directly from the Khalifa Award. Emma, is there anything you would like to add, perhaps from your perspective as an applicant and prize winner, that you think might be useful for future applicants?
Yeah, I really feel that the questionnaire is kind of, once you see it, it's very straightforward. It's very well done. It kind of walks you through and you just tell the story of your project. So I feel lots of the questions that we've received, I think once you see this questionnaire, you'll see what information to provide, etc. It's quite pedagogical the way it's done. It's like you just fill it out and tell the story about challenges in implementation, about scale, if it's been scaled or there are plans for scaling, the background, like what motivated it, etc. Like all that is kind of part of the questionnaire you fill out. So I my sense when I filled it out, was that it was it wasn't very challenging to fill out, because you know your project, you have all the information, you have your whatever you published and written about your project, and you you just kind of tell the story in simple and straightforward terms. That's like how I recall filling it out. So it was, yeah, it wasn't something that was very, very challenging to fill out because it's very well done and structured. So yes, I don't know. I hope that's helpful and serves to make people there try filling it out and present it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is very helpful. That it's difficult to describe the application in the abstract. Once you start doing it, you'll see it's very straightforward. I think probably the most important point about that is to follow the instructions. Right? People want to make exceptions, and I understand that every applicant is passionate about their work, as they should be. But you still have to provide each of the things that's required for the application. And it's really unfortunate when some people decide not to include a particular element in their application, or that they don't have to follow particular instructions, because that leads to disqualification, not necessarily on merit of the program, but because the instructions weren't followed, and we have to be fair to all of the applicants by following the instructions. So it's really important to make sure that, as Emma said, it takes you through the process of telling the story of your research or your program. Just follow those and make sure that you answer all of the questions, don't exceed the page limits, etc. Someone's asked if it's okay to use images, and I would say the answer to that is yes. You decide how to use your space. If diagrams, pictures, graphs, in any kind of display conveys better than simply writing it out, the points you're trying to make, then you should feel free to use those in your application. There are no specific requirements with regard to who can submit, in terms of you don't have to have specific qualifications. This is all about the program. Again, there isn't a specific age, no preference, within the general range of birth through age 8. Right, so it has to be the early childhood period. There are no specific subject preferences, could be any subject, math, science, language, but it doesn't even have to be an academic subject. It could be social emotional development, creativity, attitudes and dispositions, habits. So this very broad range of it's early learning and development, very broadly encompassing the whole child, and not a specific academic focus. All right, well, we're nearing the end of our time. I want to thank Emma for joining us and providing that wonderful presentation. on her project. I think you can see why it was so deserving of an award. And it provides a wonderful illustration of the type of project, the type of evidence. Doesn't have to be a randomized trial. When I say evidence, it could be qualitative, quantitative, but we are looking for rigorous approaches to demonstrating the value, since we are presenting this to the world as examples of a best approach from which others can learn and be inspired. And so I hope all of you who joined us will consider applying. And I wish everyone best luck in your applications. Thank you.